Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about what happens when you log into Windows 10 for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my password to log in. And here I am on the Windows 10 desktop. So that's what you're going to see when you log in for the first time. Of course, if things were always that simple, then there wouldn't be a reason for me to create this video. So there are a few things that you need to know about logging into Windows 10 for the first time. First of all, I found that Windows 10 tends to be a little bit slow during your first session. Things might be humming right along and you're working along as normal, and then everything just comes to a grinding halt. Nothing works for a few seconds, and then after maybe 10 or 15 seconds, Windows just goes on like nothing ever happened. So why is that? Well, the reason for that is because Windows has a self-updating mechanism, so it's probably downloading updates and drivers and that sort of thing in the background. And that's the reason why when you first start using it, Windows might run a little slow at times, or it might even appear to freeze and then later resume. So this is perfectly normal, and usage will go back to the way that you would expect it to be after a short period of time. So this isn't anything that's going to go on and on an ongoing basis. So another thing that I need to talk about with regard to using Windows 10 for the first time is device drivers. Because since the Windows 10 release, there have been quite a few people who have expressed problems with device drivers. In other words, some piece of hardware starts malfunctioning and you might lose some degree of functionality as a result. Just this morning I got an email from someone whose network cards weren't working properly and he needed a new device driver. Now, to give you a more concrete example, yesterday I upgraded my primary desktop machine to Windows 10, and when I did that, my display driver quit working properly. So I've got a large multi-monitor set up on my primary desktop, and for whatever reason only one monitor was working. So to fix the problem, I had to go out and get a brand new device driver that was compatible with Windows 10. So let me give you an idea of how this works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the Start button and I'm going to right click on it. And when you right click, instead of getting the Start menu like you do when you left click, like this, when you right click, you get a pop-up menu, and you'll notice that there's an option on here marked System. So I'm just going to click on that, and that's going to open up the System Property sheet. And you'll notice right here that we have something marked Device Manager. So if I click on Device Manager, this is going to show all of the hardware devices within the system. And if a hardware device is malfunctioning, what you'll see is a yellow triangle with an exclamation point in it next to the listing for the device. So for example, my display adapter was working incorrectly. Now everything on this machine is working right, but let's just go ahead and expand the display adapter. So right here you can see that I've got Microsoft Hyper-V Video. If this weren't working correctly, you would see an icon right here telling us so, and this would be expanded by default. So how do you fix something like that? Well, if I right click again, you'll notice that we have an option Update Device or Update Driver Software. If I click on that, then we have the option to search for a device driver. We can search automatically for updated driver software, or we can browse the computer and look for the driver software manually. So typically what you would want to do is search automatically for updated device driver software, and you would click on that and Windows would go online and begin looking for an update to your driver. Now I really don't expect it to find an update for the driver that I'm using right now, and here we see the best driver for your device is already installed. So I'm good to go, but if a newer driver were available, it would show you right here and you would have the option of installing that driver. Now this technique doesn't always work. Remember, I said that yesterday I had trouble with my video card, and that was a NVIDIA card, and the method that I just showed you didn't work for getting the device driver. So what I actually had to do was go out to NVIDIA's website and go to their drivers section and tell it what type of video card that I had, and that I was running the 64-bit edition of Windows 10, and then I was able to download the appropriate device driver and install it on my computer, and I regained functionality of my monitors. So do be sure to take a little bit of time when you first install Windows 10 to go through the device manager and just check and make sure that all of your devices are properly recognized, because you'll have a much better experience if Windows knows how to use your hardware properly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and there's one more thing that I want to talk about. If you think back to the very beginning of this video, you'll recall that I said that I want to talk about what happens when you log into Windows 10 for the first time. Now at the beginning of the video, I was sitting at a password prompt, and I entered my password, and I was taken to this screen right here. This is the screen that you will normally see when you log into Windows 10 for the first time, but not always. there are a few different factors that can affect what you actually see. So this screen right here is a clean Windows 10 installation. In other words, my computer had a blank hard disk, I inserted a Windows 10 installation DVD, I installed the operating system, and that got us to what you see right here. But things aren't always done that way, because if I had started out with a computer that was running Windows 7 or Windows 8.1, and I installed Windows 10 as an upgrade on top of one of those operating systems, my desktop might look a little bit different. How would it look different? Well, I might have a wallpaper, I would probably have some icons over here, but even in those types of situations, I would still have the same basic experience. It's just that cosmetically things might look a little bit different than what you see right here. But sometimes, depending on the type of device that you're using, there might actually be functional differences between what you see right here and the way that Windows 10 appears when you first log in. So let me show you what I mean. As you've probably heard, Windows 10 is designed to run on a variety of devices. Windows can run on a PC, it can run on a tablet, it can run on a phone. And Microsoft has created a feature called Continuum. What Continuum does is it adjusts Windows appearance to optimize it for whatever device it's running on. So for example, right here you see Windows 10 running on a PC. And this is the typical experience for using Windows 10 on a PC. But things might look a little bit different if we ran Windows 10 on a phone, because a phone has a smaller screen. So we're probably not going to fit these little bitty icons at the bottom of your phone screen. But even if we could, a phone is a touchscreen environment, and can you imagine how difficult it might be to use Windows 10 if we had to tap on all of these little bitty icons? So Microsoft's challenge in creating Continuum was to keep all of the existing functionality, but reformat the display to make Windows 10 usable on whatever device it's being used from. So let me take just a second and pause the video, and I'm going to switch over to a Windows 10 phone device just so that you can see the difference. Okay, so this is a Windows 10 phone device, and you'll notice that it looks a little bit different from the desktop environment that I showed you a moment ago. So since we're talking about what happens when you log on for the first time, the point that I wanted to make is that you might receive a different experience depending on the device that you're using. So this Windows 10 phone device, this is running a real copy of Windows 10. The reason it looks different from the desktop environment that you saw a moment ago is because of that Continuum feature that I talked about. Continuum knows that this particular device has a small screen, and it also knows that Windows phones don't support a desktop environment. So we have the elements that are supported on Windows Phone, and they're arranged in a way that makes it conducive for use on a smaller screen. So on the start screen, we have the live tiles. These are the same live tiles that you get in a Windows 10 desktop environment. In this case, they're just arranged a little bit different because this isn't a default configuration. I set this up in preparation for another video that I'm going to be doing in Chapter 11. So where's the Start menu? Well, notice right here that we have All Apps. If I tap on this, then I'm taken to the Start menu. It looks a little bit different than what you would have on the desktop, but all of your universal apps are listed right here. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Windows Phone because I do have an entire lesson devoted to Windows Phone in Chapter 11. For right now, I just wanted to show you how what you see might differ depending on the type of device that you're using. Now I want to take a look at how things differ in a tablet environment. Okay, so for right now, I'm not actually going to connect to a tablet, although I do have an entire lesson on tablets in Chapter 11. But the point that I wanted to make is that a lot of the newer tablets have high resolution and they can do just as good of a job as a PC can. But remember that Continuum feature. It's designed to orient Windows based on the interface and on the device's capabilities. So the way that this works is that if you have a keyboard attached to your tablet, then when you log in for the first time, you're going to see a display that looks a lot like what you see right here. In other words, Windows is going to see that it's running on a tablet that has a full keyboard, and it's going to act just like a PC. Now, if that keyboard is not connected, you're going to see an entirely different experience. You're going to see a touch-optimized display rather than a display that's oriented for mouse and keyboard. So right now I'm on a PC, but there is a way to access that touch-oriented display. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so take a look at this icon right here. This icon goes into something called the Action Center. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Action Center right now because I've got an entire discussion of it in one of the later videos. But what I wanted to show you is what happens when I tap on this. You'll notice that I have a toggle button right here marked Tablet Mode. So if I click on tablet mode, this button will light up kind of like the way that this button is lit up, showing that it's engaged, and you'll see the screen right here completely change. So let me go ahead and click on that. And you can see how different this looks. So if we were to boot up Windows 10 for the first time on a tablet and there was no keyboard attached, this is the type of display that you would likely see. Now again, this is still Windows 10. It's just a different way of formatting Windows 10. This is the continuum feature in action. Now you'll notice that we have all of our live tiles that are displayed right here. They take up most of the screen, and we still have a start button, but watch what happens when I click this. Not a thing. So what happens if we need to go to the desktop? Well, typically in tablet mode you wouldn't access the desktop because the desktop isn't touch optimized. But if we did need to go to the desktop, there are a few different ways of getting there. One option is to right click on the start button, not the left click but the right click, and that's going to pop up a menu, and I just click on desktop and I'm taken right back to the Windows 10 desktop. If I press the start button again, I'm taken right back into tablet mode. And so in some ways this behaves almost like Windows 8, whereas there's no start menu, but we're taken back and forth between desktop and a start screen. So how else do we get back to desktop? Well, another thing that you can do is obviously to click on the Action Center again and then just tap on tablet mode, and that takes us back to the way that things were. Now if I tap on the start button, we have our normal start menu, so everything's good there. And then of course the other way that we could do this is if this were a real tablet, simply attach a keyboard, and when you attach a keyboard, Windows will immediately recognize that keyboard and put you back into desktop mode, turn tablet mode off, so that the device will behave in a manner that's the most appropriate for having a keyboard attached. So hopefully this will just give you a quick preview of what you can expect when you log into Windows 10 for the first time. Now in the next video, I'm going to really get going, and I'm going to walk you through all of the basic navigation tasks related to working in a Windows 10 environment.